In this video, we're going to make a very simple pasta dish that is authentic and classic, just the way I learned in Italy. By the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how to do this yourself. Hey, I'm Dr. Anna. I'm a medical doctor. I was trained in Italy, and on this channel, you're gonna learn how to master your health with the Mediterranean diet. So let's get started. What do we need in order to do this really well? Well, you need a large pot with a lid. You need a large spoon or a tablespoon. You need some kind of a cooking tool to stir the pasta around. You're going to need a scale, a colander for straining it, and then we have our ingredients. We have the pasta itself that I'm going to use, a style of short pasta called rigatoni. It's my favorite. Then we have olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, and then we have salt, any kind of salt that you like. And if you're looking to get some more equipment so that you can make really healthy Mediterranean dishes yourself, I have a bunch of links below in the description of my favorite cooking tools, so you can check those out if you're interested. So, when it comes to making pasta, the really key thing is to do things in the right order. Now, if you wanted to make pasta from scratch, you could totally do that. You could get the flour out on the table, get your egg, start mixing it, or maybe if you're gonna have a non-egg kind, just get your water and make it all by hand or with the machine. That's totally fine, and that's delicious and amazing. But if you're short on time and you wanna use a store-bought kind, that's also great. So what we wanna do is first put the amount of water we need into our pot. Usually for a personal portion for one person, you'd wanna boil around 3 quarts of water, or maybe 4. And if you're gonna be cooking for 2, about 6 quarts of water should probably do the trick. So I take my large pot this size and I fill it about 2/3 high. I don't actually measure the amount of water. The first thing you wanna do is start bringing your water to a boil. And it's very important to put a lot of salt in the water, because the idea is you want the water to be as salty as the sea. That's the Italian way. So you put your salt in, you bring it to a boil. In the meantime, you wanna measure the amount of pasta that you wanna eat. Now, this is one of the key differences between the way Italians eat pasta and the way people eat pasta in the United States, for example. Italians always measure the amount of pasta that they want to eat before they actually cook it. And in the European system, they're usually using the metric system. So they're gonna weigh it and understand the number of grams of the pasta that they're interested in. Now, Italians typically know the grams of pasta they want depending on how hungry they are, and they're used to doing this, so they have a really good, precise understanding of what 100 grams of pasta looks like and how that's gonna make them feel. My typical go-to is to also weigh my pasta in grams, because that's just what I got used to. If I'm really hungry and I want like a proper portion of pasta that's gonna really fill me, I'm going to go for about 120 grams myself. If I'm looking for a lighter portion of pasta, anywhere from 80 to 100 grams usually does the trick. So you just have to experiment and play with your own hunger and what your body's needs are and that kind of thing. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh the amount of pasta that I need to make for myself and my husband. This is gonna be a loud part. What I typically do is I let the gram number go a little bit higher than my target, because I know I'm always going to bite and taste a piece of pasta to know when it's done. Now, a lot of people are happy to just look at the package and say, okay, it needs to cook for 11 minutes. They set the timer, 11 minutes, and then they're just done. I honestly never do that. I just put it in and I kind of watch the pasta and I can see how it's evolving as it's boiling. And then at a certain point, I'm gonna bite it and I'm gonna taste it to understand how cooked it is. So I'm going to bring my pasta water up to a much higher boil. So I'm gonna turn up that heat. Now I'm gonna add a lot of salt to this water to make it as salty as the sea. One of the things people do wrong very often in the US, which I have come to learn, is to put olive oil in the pasta water. That is an absolute no. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't want to do that, because the pasta is boiling inside the water part, and oil and water don't mix. So if you're putting oil into water, the idea that that's going to prevent the pasta from sticking doesn't really make sense, because the pasta is not really going to come into direct contact with the oil. It's in the water. The other thing is that when you want to bring your pasta water to a boil, put the lid on it, it's gonna go way faster. So we are getting close. We are almost boiling. I like to wait till the water is totally at a rolling boil. Then I put my pasta in, but technically you could add it a little bit earlier if you wanted to. All right, we're boiling. So now I'm going to put my pasta into the water. And then we're gonna leave the lid off. So it's going to boil out in the open. And I have my tool to make sure. I always give it a quick stir at the beginning to keep it from sticking to the edges or all being in one clump. That's honestly one of the most unfortunate things, is when it's been 10 minutes and your pasta's been boiling and you go over it and you didn't remember to stir it and it's all in one chunk at the bottom. At that point, it's really hard to separate it without them ripping apart. So I just like to get them kind of dancing, and then they're gonna do their magic. Now let's talk about olive oil in pasta for a second. So as we said before, we're not going to put olive oil into the boiling water because that doesn't make any sense. When the pasta is done boiling, we're going to strain it in our colander in the sink, and then we're going to put the sauce on top of it back in the pot before we serve it. That is really important. But how much olive oil should we use? Well, there are certain types of sauces that you would have on a pasta, like a pesto. It's going to be very dense in olive oil. And so you don't really need to add any olive oil back into the pasta before just adding your sauce, because that type of a sauce is so oily itself. But when I'm cooking pasta al pomodoro, which is just pasta with tomato sauce or any other kind of vegetable sauce, I do want to put a little bit of olive oil onto the pasta before the sauce because I don't want it to be sticking. And that sauce itself is watery, and if I'm not fast enough with getting it in there, it's already sticking together. So I'm gonna just stir it around a little bit. We had a little bit of foaming happening inside of the pot, totally normal. And the kind of pasta that I buy actually does come from Italy. Now there's a few Italian brands that are sold in the US commonly. One of them is Barilla. Another one that I'm seeing pop up all the time, and it's one of my favorites that I was actually buying when I lived in Italy, is called Rumo. Now I don't have any affiliations with either of those companies. It's just what I like to eat with my family. So I thought I'd let you know. Now when it comes to the shape of your pasta, any of them are appropriate at any time. I typically like to eat a long pasta half the time and a short pasta the other half. If you travel to Italy, there are going to be certain regions that have different shapes that are native to that area. And then their local sauce is typically served with a specific shape of pasta. For example, in the town of Genoa, that's where the basil pesto comes from. Often there's going to be these really tiny, twisty pastas called trofie. And that's like the classic way that pesto pasta is served, which is kind of cool. And it just comes from that region. But everywhere you go in Italy, you're going to have some nuances and differences from one town to another, which makes it so much fun. But where I am in the United States, there's not really any rules when it comes to what shape of pasta you have with what kind of sauce. You really could just do whatever you like. Okay, so we are boiling. By the way, if you like this video so far, make sure to subscribe and follow for more, because we're gonna keep these recipe videos coming. It's my dedication to all of you to help you eat the Mediterranean diet and follow a Mediterranean lifestyle, because it's just so darn healthy for us. So as much as I can make that easier for you guys, I'm going to do that. All right, now we have our strained pasta that is dry and ready to go. The rule of thumb is to take 1 tablespoon of olive oil per person eating it. So this is a large spoon, so it's roughly a tablespoon. I'm going to put 2 spoons because this is going to be a pasta for 2 people. And that's it. And then I stir the olive oil around the pasta just to keep it from sticking momentarily. Now I have my homemade quick sauce that I like to do, which is a combination of tomatoes and bell peppers from whole form, cooked down in about 20 minutes. And I made it myself, so if you're interested, you can check it out in this tutorial up here. But what I'm going to do is combine the sauce and the pasta while it's in the pot. This is fundamental to do, and most Americans don't realize that you have to do it this way, or otherwise it's not a classic or it's not a proper pasta according to Italians. Don't ever plate the pasta and dry and then put the sauce on it on the plate and send it out to somebody. Yikes, that is like sacrilegious according to Italians. So this is my beautiful sauce that I made myself. So what I'm going to do is add it into the pasta, and we're going to then stir it around and combine it and then plate it and serve it. So now inside the pot, I'm going to stir the sauce and the pasta to combine them together. And the goal is to make the sauce stick to the pasta. That's about the amount of sauce you'd want to use in general for any pasta dish, whether it's spaghetti, rigatoni, or fusilli, any shape. You want it to look like the sauce is sticking to the edge of the pasta and not swimming in it. That's a huge difference between the way classic American Italian pasta dishes are from traditional Italian pasta dishes that come from Italy. So now that it's combined, you can see the ratio of the pasta to the sauce that I have, and I'm going to plate it. So at this point, you are just kind of eyeballing how much goes in which dish. But again, in the beginning, we did weigh our pasta, so we know that each one is gonna have roughly 120 grams of pasta. All right, now I'm going to add some grated Parmesan cheese on top to finish it off. And there you have your fabulous homemade sauce and pasta dish that you can do yourself. I hope you enjoy, and if you are doing this along with me, it smells amazing. Have a wonderful pasta. So now that you know how to make a pasta for yourself, if you're interested in understanding how pasta affects our health and what the scientific literature says about it, I have a whole video about the effects of pasta on our health overall. Jump into that video and I'll see you in there.